coaches. It's Barclay Radebaugh with Nations of Coaches with our in-season growth series, A Higher Level of Play. We are thrilled to have our special guest tonight, Missouri Associate Head Coach Charlton C.Y. Young.
Always good to see you, man. I'm just impressed how you have come from the 1900s to handle all this um, technical stuff.
Yeah, you know for coaches, for coaches,
I'm
it's hard.
impressed. I'm impressed.
Yeah, thank you. We have a great team at Nations of Coaches, and I've had a lot of prep and a lot of help getting ready for this. Associate head coach in the SEC, successful everywhere you've been. CY, you have an incredible family. Carolyn, your wife, 4 children, Ariel, Adia, Isaiah, and Nehemiah. You told a funny story at the Final Four at dinner. I'd love for the coaches who are watching to hear that.
I just was I was making the point at dinner that I live under a tremendous amount of pressure, uh, and I have to have a tremendous amount of humility to be me because sometimes people come up to me and say, "Hey, you was a Hall of Fame player at Georgia Southern. Your jersey was retired," and I tell them, I'm not even the best player in my own house. It's not even close.
Yeah.
My kids rag on me about my wife being uh, the two-time player of the year in the SEC and jersey retired at Auburn and Olympian.
Yeah.
So when I got my jersey retired this year, I was very happy. I was like, "Thank you, Lord. At least I can show my kids I'm close to her."
Yeah. Wow, I was so impressed when I was prepping that she played in the Olympics and 2-time SEC Player of the Year. Incredible, incredible. Tonight, coaches, we're going to talk about recruiting, a higher level of recruiting. And CY has long been known as one of the top, if not the top, recruiting assistant in the country. He's one of the top recruiters over the last 10 or 12 years and has done a great job wherever he has been bringing in great talent. CY, you've been the most loyal guy, one of the most loyal guys I know. Every time I talk to you, you're always giving credit to the people who have helped you get to where you are. Talk about loyalty.
It's something that's been ingrained in my DNA from inner city Miami, my family, my friends, and I was taught by my grandma Inez, who I talk about a bunch, um, that you show gratitude for people that help you and shape you and mold you. And so I've always tried to go beyond the call of duty to keep that loyalty and this to be appreciative of the people who poured into me and blessed me because you can't, it takes a village. Nobody does it by themselves. When you see somebody in a successful position, there's always a team of people that push that young man or push that young lady in the direction that they were supposed to go in. So I've been blessed beyond measure. The good Lord has put people in my life, uh, like Coach Robbie Lang, who's assistant coach at Central Florida, and Jalen and Hamilton and Paul Hewitt, and uh, I've been a product of some really good people and coaches going back to inner city Miami and Coach Ernie Bell, my high school coach, who made me a point guard, made me a coach, and his staff, Coach Bernard and Coach Dixon, and I've had some guys in my life that really have pushed me um, to be successful.
Yeah. You've been a head coach, CY, successful head coach at Georgia Southern, and quite obviously, will be a head coach again soon. What have you learned in the interim? I've seen a lot of guys, they're better their second time.
Mhm.
And what have
Mhm.
you learned from your first successful head coaching position to what God has for you in the future to be a head coach again? What are some things that you have learned?
Well, I would say, we can have this conversation for 2.5, 3 hours.
Yeah.
I talk about this with people all the time. But if I had to choose two, when I became the head coach at my alma mater, Georgia Southern University, I was 37 years old. I was the youngest Division One head coach in the country at the time. Um, so I was still growing as a man and as a coach. And I think the two biggest things that I learned was number one, you got to have control of your emotional intelligence. I think is very, very important. Jalen Hamilton taught me that. He is so gifted at that. He always makes tremendous decisions uh, because he has total control of his emotional intelligence. You watch him coach a game, you can't tell if he's up 20 or down 20. Uh, and because of that, he's had a lifetime of success. Coach Dennis Gates, uh, my brother who I work with here, he is he is kind of taken that from Coach Leonard Hamilton, and he's having success because he's very, very good at that. And looking back on it, that was something that I was not good at. I had the passion and I loved the kids, almost loved them to death. I wanted them to be successful so bad. Uh, I had a tremendous amount of passion behind that, but sometimes it might have come across as not having control of your emotional intelligence. And when you do that, the people around you, they don't tell you, but they lose a little bit of respect for you. And respect is the ultimate currency. So you can't let that happen. And then the second thing I would say I learned is when you take a head coaching position, you got to understand you're being hired to be the head coach and CEO. And I look back at my opportunity as a Division One head coach. I'm very grateful and thankful for Georgia Southern University, my alma mater. Uh, I love them. I still bleed Eagle Blue. Um, but I look back on it like a putt that was on the edge of the cup that I was jumping up and down trying to get it to go in. And I think I should have been a better CEO and understanding that you got to be more proactive instead of reactive. I think
Mhm.
those two things, controlling your emotional intelligence and being a better CEO by being proactive. So that would be what I could say is some other things, but I would say those are the two most important.
Yeah, that's very real. That's great for young coaches across the world that are going to be listening to this to learn that. Let's dig into recruiting. You're a complete coach. I've known that for a long time, but we would be remiss if we didn't agree that you are one of the best recruiters. You are a gifted recruiter. I know you're a gifted X and O guy because I've talked to you. You know the game. You have that basketball point guard IQ, but you are indeed a gifted recruiter. And so I want to dig in a little bit, see why you've been so successful as a recruiter. 18 or 14 NBA draft picks you've recruited, five NBA or G League players just in 2 years at Missouri. Incredible. Incredible run at Florida State of just piling all American 5 star on top of 5 star, and they all developed into NBA players. Describe for us your philosophical approach. If I say recruiting, Charlton Young says recruiting is this two or three things are the fundamentals.
So let me say this first. I would be remiss if I didn't say this. I am, again, I've been blessed to work with some great head coaches and CEOs and some great staffs. And recruiting at the elite level, nobody can do it by themselves. You got to have a staff that kind of works together. And obviously, you're going to have a point guard on certain situations, and they have the lead. But I was blessed to work with Cliff Ellis, and I had Robbie Lang and Eugene Harris back in the day who really poured into me. Uh, at Georgia Tech, and I worked with Mike LaPlante at Auburn also, who was really, he was great in my development. I mean, those guys, Eugene Harris, Mike LaPlante, Robbie Lang, those guys were like a dream team for me to be a young coach to work with. And then I work for Hugh Durham and Doug Durham at Jacksonville, and I leave there and I go with Rudy Keelan at Northeastern. Now, think about this staff I was on at Northeastern. I was on the staff with Pat Scurry, he was the head coach at Townsend. Jay Young was the head coach at Fairfield for a while. I was back at Rutgers, and myself and Rudy, and we had tremendous success together. And then at Georgia Tech, I was with the great Paul Hewitt, who was an elite head coach, CEO, and recruiter. And on that staff, had some really good grinders. A guy named John O'Connor, who I need to call, I love, Willie Reese, Peter Zaharis. Um, I've been on some staffs and blessed to be around some big time head coaches. John Schulman at Chattanooga. I can go on and on. So that's the first thing I want to say. No, nobody does it by themselves. But
Of course.
uh, to answer your question, I would say the first thing you got to be an elite recruiter is a great evaluator first. A great evaluator first. And when I say evaluator, I mean evaluate their talent, evaluate their character, evaluate their disposition, evaluate their level of preparation coming into your program, evaluate their parents, their relationship with their parents and family, evaluate the people around them. Because sometimes the people around them dictate, are they going to be successful or not? Success has a certain look. Success has a certain look, whether it's basketball, business, uh, Wall Street. It's just certain people and certain things that win, that are championship caliber. So before you get to the recruiting component, you got to go down there and really study the situation and say, hey, this is going to be success. This has success written all over it. Because sometimes you read the rankings or what people tell you to do, and you go in there and watch it, and you're listening to what other people tell you, but your eyes and your gut is telling you, they got him listed as a 5 star, but this isn't a 5 star situation. And then there's the guys that you go in that the diamonds in the rough, which I love the most. A guy that's ranked number 297, but you're watching him, his work ethic, understanding human growth and development. You see a young, gangly body with a low hairline and no hair on his chin. And it's not what he is, but what he's going to be. And some people have the gift to see that this kid he's a high character gym rat. He's from a great program because I really, Barclay, I really like to recruit programs as opposed to players.
Mhm.
I think I'd rather take a guy who averaged 12.3 out of a big time program than a guy who averaged 29 on a bad team.
Yeah.
And all this I'm talking about is a part of the evaluation process. So the first thing I would say in order to be a great recruiter, first you got to be a great evaluator. And a lot of people miss that.
Mm. Great stuff. I heard you. I love to read about you and listen to you, see why you're so entertaining and fun to be around. You said one time, recruiting is like shaving. You have to do it every day. What'd you mean?
Yeah, well, when you take on the job as a coach and recruiter and a guy that they're dependent on to bring in high level talent to the program, you got to understand that you're a cop. You are the job, and it's a lifestyle. And now you got to find a way um, to incorporate your family and all the things that are important in your lifestyle. You got to make time for them so that your family, your wife, your children, your family doesn't think that the job is more important than them. But if you're going to be a high level recruiter and coach, you got to understand that you're a cop. You are the job. You got to treat everybody you meet like they're going to die at midnight because you never know. You got to always be dropping seeds wherever you go and building relationships, whether it's a young man, his parents, or the coaches. And then when you come back, guess what? Your crop will harvest if you treat people right. Um, I think human beings are naturally selfish. And I think the great recruiters and coaches, they understand that the more you give, the more you receive. The great coaches and recruiters, they view themselves as philanthropists. And sometimes you can't give of money, but you can give of knowledge and wisdom. Reverend Jason G taught me that a long time ago, maybe 15 years ago. And it really resonated with me. Uh, so I think if you're going to be a great recruiter, great coach, first you got to be excited to help people. And
That's
then
good.
as you start to help people, maybe you go in to recruit a kid and the high school coach, he says, Coach, this is my big star player, but I got this other kid over here that can you help him get a D2? Can you help him get a junior college? Can you help him get an NIA school, NAIA school? And so I've always, my grandma Inez put in my spirit, the more you give, the more you receive. I've always enjoyed being a coach because you can help people. And so a lot of times I come in, I may not get the recruit, but if he needs me to help this other young man on the team or this other young coach, I'm gonna help him. And I think I've been blessed because it's always come back to me over the last 31 years of building relationships. Sometimes guys walk up to me and they give me a hug, say, Coach, man, thank you so much. You helped me. No going over. I can't even remember. I'm like, I did. I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. I
You're
don't
right.
go a month. I don't go sometimes a week without hearing, well, see why helped me do this or see why helped me this. I greatly appreciate you helped me get two or three players and
Right.
that was amazing. You worked with some truly great head coaches. You talk about it. That's part of the loyalty that you have. Every time we have a conversation, you bring it into that conversation people that have helped you, and that's a great sign of loyalty. But you've worked for different head coaches, different styles of play, from Cliff Ellis to John Schulman to Paul Hewitt to Leonard Hamilton, and now Dennis Gates. How is it important as you're recruiting to be able to understand style of play, the personality of the head coach, the system, the culture, and to recruit to that?
It's critical, it's pivotal, it's everything. It's everything. Because every head coach and CEO and system, they're different. And so you got to study your own system and have a relationship with your head coach and understand his disposition and his temperament and what will fit with him and what won't. Some people like small, quick guards. Some people like long, athletic wings that can switch 1 through 5. Some guys like uh, big body Benzes. They like plotters that can sit in the paint and hold it. Cliff Ellis, he wanted that ball inside. He wanted that ball to go throw in over the top. He wanted everybody to be great post feeders. Uh, Paul Hewitt wanted ball screen guys. He wanted guys who won the first 3 steps in transition. Jay Leonard Hamilton wanted length and athleticism. He wanted to take away vision defensively, and he wanted rim protection. And he felt like we could develop the other things. So, as a coach, when you understand your head coach and CEO and your system, now when you go out and you're evaluating, you can say, hey, this guy fits, and we
Yeah,
can develop this guy, and he'll be successful here. And but I'm telling you, I've been around some of the best who have ever do it, some Hall of Famers. Uh, and so I've been able to grow and develop because of being my first job was with Cliff Ellis. Cliff Ellis, might be the third winningest coach in the history of the game. Uh, Definitely Hall of Fame worthy. Hugh Durham. I mean,
Yeah.
people don't remember how good Hugh Durham was. Hugh Durham was like Picasso, like Liberace. You know, what I mean, he understood basketball and building programs at a high level. He was a great player at Florida State and built Florida State, and then built Georgia, and then went to Jacksonville at the end of his career, and then being with a Paul Hewitt, who I don't think gets enough credit for what he did at Georgia at Georgia Tech. I think Bobby Crimmins was a phenomenal coach at Georgia Tech, but I think Paul Hewitt is the best coach in the history of Georgia Tech. He took them to the national championship game. Uh, Coach Crimmins took him to the Final Four, and he was phenomenal. Uh, but Paul Hewitt, and you know the funny thing, I was telling somebody this about this last week. Paul Hewitt not only took him to the championship game, they lost to UConn in the finals. But earlier that year, they had beat UConn by 20. So they were fully expected to beat them again, and UConn wound up beating them in the finals. And then you go from Paul Hewitt to Jay Leonard Hamilton, who is definitely a Hall of Famer, and uh, what he's done to build Florida State into a basketball powerhouse uh, is been amazing. I mean, he's really done a lot uh, with not a lot of resources in terms of basketball. You know, Florida State's a football school, and I think he made them kind of do more. So he went to, we went to three straight uh, Sweet 16s, an Elite Eight, an ACC regular season title. That's hard to do in the ACC when you got Mike Krzyzewski right here, Roy Williams right here, Boeheim right here, and Tony Bennett right here. Like, I mean, that league was unbelievable at the time. So um, I've really been blessed to be around some of the best to ever do it. And I've learned a ton from each one of them and try to add it to my game as a coach, as a recruiter, as a CEO, as a leader. Uh, I'm just so grateful and thankful.
Yes, absolutely. You talked about different head coaches working with different head coaches. There's also different philosophies on interstaff recruiting. How do you
Mhm.
do it? Do you do it in regions? Do you do it in connections, prep schools, JUCOs, high school? Do you divide them up? What's the best two or three ways, CY, that you have seen that if a head coach is watching and he's thinking about changing up how he recruits, how he uses
Mhm.
his staff most efficiently and their giftings most efficiently, what are the best two or three ways that you've seen to work together as a staff in recruiting?
That's a great question. I've seen it done a variety of different ways. Um, my humble opinion, 31 years of experience, um, I think there's nothing stronger in recruiting and nothing more important than relationships. I think that you shouldn't have geographic areas. Um, I think the relationship should always supersede that. I think just like with your team, if you're going to have a championship team, on each situation, you got to have a great point guard. And I think in each recruiting situation, there needs to be a point guard who facilitates and gets the rest of the staff involved so that you recruit as a staff. But at the end of the day, when kids and mothers and fathers and grandmas and grandpas and uncles make decisions, they want to have a relationship with somebody that they trust, that they can talk to. And I just think 31 years of doing this, I just think that's the most important part of it. I've seen it so many times. Now we're in a new era. Recruiting has evolved. You got NIL, it's basically pay to play. Uh, but what people don't understand, some people think because of NIL, everybody says, oh, recruiting doesn't matter anymore. You just pay the guy. That's That is the biggest fib ever told. Even though there's NIL, even though there's uh, pay to play, uh, there still has to be a relationship with the family where the people can trust somebody who can show them the vision, lay their development plan out on the table. You know, if you recruit the right way, yeah, there are families that make decisions for the wrong reasons. But what I found being out here 31 years, there's still a lot of good people out here that want to make the decision for the right reasons. And they want their sons or daughters with the right people. And sometimes they'll take less money to go to the right situation
Yeah.
than just taking the highest bidder. I think so many kids and parents in AAU programs have had players go to a situation that didn't work out, and they
Right.
saw how bad it was that they're like, wait a minute, we're not just jumping for the money. We want a relationship, we want a development plan, we want a right system, we want a right fit. And I don't think that will ever change about recruiting. I don't care how much money comes into play. Now, it's going to be some people that watch this video and they laugh. But I'm telling you, the joke's on them. You still have to get out and recruit and develop relationships and lay a foundation with a family, with a coach, with the program if you want to recruit at the high level. And I don't think that's ever going to change because now the NIL, a lot of people got the same thing. Now, some people that have astronomical amount of money, and yeah, you may lose that deal, but it's a lot of players out here if you can evaluate.
Yeah.
There's a lot of players that's going to develop. You know, I go to Atlanta. There's a pro in every corner in Atlanta if you can evaluate. There's a pro in
That's
every
right.
corner. A lot of people can't see it, and that's the problem. You know, a lot of young coaches, they're reading the scouting report or the scouting services. They're reading them and they're listening to what everybody's saying, but they're not watching. They're
Mhm.
reading the scout reports. They're listening to what they're saying, but they're not watching. See, when I go to an event to recruit, I'm hands free. I don't buy no book. I don't know who is who because I don't want any preconceived notion of what this young man is supposed to be. So, Coach Radebaugh, when I walk in the gym, I'm telling you, I don't know who is who, but I'm gonna get in the corner, I'm gonna sit down, and I'm gonna watch, and then somebody's gonna make my alarm go off, and I'm gonna say, "Who is that?" And then I'm gonna figure it out. But I don't want anybody to tell me this guy's a 5 star, this guy's low major, this guy. You know, I had the scouting service people trying to tell me Malik Beasley was a low major player, low to mid. Now I didn't know who he was, but when I went in and watched, I said, "That's Byron Scott." They said, "Well, you supposed to be recruiting this guy and that guy." Nah, y'all go ahead and recruit him. I want that one. And then I started digging into his character and digging into his work ethic and digging into his family. And I said, this kid got success written all over him. Next thing I know, he's the first one and done in the history of Florida State, the first one and done in Jalen Hamilton's tenure. I thought he was a 4-year guy. Now I knew he was a pro. Then I got to know his mama and his dad and how committed they were. I was like, yeah, he gonna be a 2 or 3 year guy. Well, I
Mhm.
was wrong. He was one and done. So
First time I ever heard that. See, why? First time to go into an environment, a recruiting environment, and not have a guide, a book, and just trust your instincts with no preconceived idea of who is who, but to go into that situation and decide on your own who is best fits for Georgia Tech or Florida State or Missouri, and that's incredible. Early in my career, see why I went to a full clinic. It was called a closing clinic. It was to teach us as young recruiters how to close the deal.
Mhm.
I know you're great at that. You have
Mhm.
to be great at that because you recruited a large number of great players as staffs that you've been on. And
Mhm.
I know it's certainly a staff effort, but you've been the point guard on a
Mhm.
lot of great recruits. Talk to
Mhm.
us about the fundamentals of closing the deal in recruiting.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, when I speak to younger coaches, they ask the same question because that's the one thing as a young coach is hard to figure out.
Yeah.
And for me, I call that sniper mode, the gate. And so when I get in a situation where I got to go in sniper mode, I try to build a gate around the prospect and I try to control all the information that goes to him to help him make his decision. So what does that mean? Well, number one, you got to find out who's the juice, right? Is it the mama? Is it the dad? Is it the uncle? Is it the AAU coach? And every situation is different. And once you find that out, you identify the prospect and put an exponent over his head as the juice. Then you put 4 or 5 people around him, maybe that can't get you the kid, but they can keep you from getting them.
Mm.
Information. And you got to build a relationship with those people on that gate on top of building a relationship with the kid and who's the key decision maker, which I call the juice. Now it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't want to do it. Sometimes it's the prospect. I would say this, uh, uh, Derek Favors, who's the number one. Paul Hewitt said, "Hey, we got to get Derek Favors," and he and I and our staff we recruited Derek Favors together, and we was able to keep him home. But he had an AAU coach by the name of Coach Stiegel. His nickname was Squirt, and but Coach Stiegel was like his big brother, his uncle, his father figure, and the mom trusted him. So you had to go through Coach Stiegel to get Favors, and then once you did that, you built a gate around him with, the president of the AAU organization, the mom, the sister, the high school coach, the best friend. And so having all those people around Coach Stiegel and Favors, he also had an aunt and uncle who really wanted him to go to Memphis, but I got him turned. They going but putting those people around him, the kid gets on the podium and he says Georgia Tech. And
Mm.
at that time, we beat Memphis when Calipari was there and Carolina and Duke. But it took a lot of man hours to put those people around them and build and call them every week and go see them and have a relationship with them. And on top of recruiting the kid, uh, that's the only way to close. And
Yeah.
the people who can't close, they don't understand that concept.
Mm. The portal, CY, this portal, just a little bit of advice for coaches on dealing with the portal. It has created a new way of recruiting. Just a couple fundamentals of recruiting the portal.
Now, it's funny you say that. You say that it created a new way of recruiting. But to be honest with you, it hasn't. Uh, because the portal, you still have to do your homework. You still have to get extensive intel. And you really need to do a better job of building relationships and evaluating all these kids when they come out of high school. Because that kid that you thought was a low to mid-major player, in 2 years, you're going to be recruiting that kid in the portal because he's going to go to Charleston Southern and average 15.7 and then jump in the portal. And guess what? You better have known him or had a relationship with Westlake High School or the Georgia Stars or whatever AAU program he was in, whatever high school program he was in. And you better have had some type of interaction with him to give you a chance to get him out the portal. So
Mm.
the portal has changed some people recruit experience. And now mid-major guys People want that experience. So when they play well, they go up. But for us, I think it puts more of a premium on evaluating the entire tournament. So when I go to a tournament now, I can't just watch one kid. I got to watch all these kids and say, okay, let me make notes. That kid right there is a low Division I guy. This kid is a mid-major plus guy. That kid is a high major minus guy. That kid is a high major guy, but he has a terrible attitude. I've been watching him all day. If he ever jumps in the portal, I'm not messing with him because I
Mhm.
watched him. I watched him all day uh, at a tournament in Orlando, and he don't even know I was watching him. But I got him in my notes. Low character guy, bad teammate. So I think it puts more of a premium on evaluating everybody and making sure your relationships everywhere are strong. Because a lot of these kids, when they jump in the portal, if you don't already have a relationship with them, you got no shot.
Mhm. See why you've been a man of strong character for a long time. You've handled yourself professionally, personally, with the utmost of dignity and respect for a long time in our profession. And I know your faith plays a big part of who you are as a father, as a husband, and as a coach. As we close, just a little bit about your faith and what it means to you in your day-to-day walk and the impact that you've had on so many people in our profession and so many players. Just how your faith has had an impact.
Well, I'm born and raised St. Mark Missionary Baptist Church in Liberty City, Miami. Reverend J.W. Cooper was our pastor. He's gone to the better place now. But my family, entire family, my grandmother, my great grandmother, all the Youngs and all the Williams in Miami, we had to be in church on Sunday. We had to be at Bible study on Tuesday, choir rehearsal on Saturday, usher board on Wednesday. So I was raised in the church. And, once you have that foundation, it's impossible to go away from it. And my grandmother, they put the the respect and the power of prayer inside me. So I've always been at peace. I've always been a guy that had blind faith. I've always been a guy that believed that my steps were already ordered by the Lord. I've always been a guy that understood that what God has for you is for you and nobody can touch it. And so I've never struggled with what I was doing or where I was going. I've always been able to have peace and not live in the past and not live in the future, just kind of live where my feet are because of my faith. And just like my grandma Inez and my great grandma and my grandma Tilly in South Florida put that in me, my wife and I have been able to put that in our children. And it's beautiful to watch because, we got Ariel who played at Carolina. She's getting her master's at the University of North Carolina. She has a strong faith. I got a daughter who's battling for playing time at Auburn right now. Uh, and she has a strong faith. And I got two sons at South Kenton, Connecticut, and they're battling for playing time and scholarships, and they have a strong faith. So it's really a beautiful thing to see it come to fruition and to be in our children and to see them have that same, I call it Godfidence, not confidence, but Godfidence that, hey, everything's gonna be all right. What God has for me is for me, and I'm going to be happy for everybody, not be selfish, want everybody else to succeed, no jealousy or anything like that in our hearts. Uh, I just think that it makes you a better man, makes you a better coach, makes you a better person.
Amen to that. Well, thank you, CY. This has been incredible. I've taken so many notes and learned so much from you. Um, Coaches CY and I are in a Bible study prayer time together twice a month, and we've been praying for Audia. She's been hooping.
Yeah, see,
She's been hooping. I've been
I
excited. I haven't followed Auburn's women basketball ever, but now I do to see how Audia do. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the impact that you have had on college basketball. Thank you for the impact that you're going to have on college basketball and being the man that you are and the friend that you are. If coaches across the country and the world would like to contact you, what's the best way?
I guess email cjykxd@missouri.edu. And sometimes it takes me a little bit of time to get back, but I'll get back. I get thousands, thousands of them, but
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
definitely would like to help who I can help.
Absolutely. Coaches out there, if Nations of Coaches can help you in any way, let me know at bradebaugh@nationsofcoaches.com. We want to serve. We have tons of resources and services to serve you, coaches, and to help you grow on the court and off the court. CY, you've been amazing. We pray for you often. And we just wish you the very best. I genuinely wish you're one of the great ones. And
Yeah,
I can't wait
it.
to see what God does.
Well, I love Nations of Coaches and what you guys are doing, and I'm glad that these young coaches are intelligent enough to take advantage of these resources because I wish Nations of Coaches would have been around when I was a young guy coming up. I'd probably be a Power Five head coach by now.
Well, I got a feeling that's going to happen. Got a great feeling. So
Well, I appreciate you.
talk to you soon.
Man, thanks, Coach.